Hi everyone. So I'm going to cover installing Speckle and installing plugins. Um, from now on, it's probably a better idea to stop opening Rhino from this sort of screen here in Citrix, and instead at the top, Home Apps Desktops, go to Desktops. So CVAD has, because some of these softwares are so big, they have one server where all the Autodesk software is installed and another server where everything else is installed. However, because we're going to use Revit and Rhino at the same time, I asked that I need Rhino and Autodesk Revit really to be in the same place on the same server. So IT have moved Rhino to this Autodesk server. I think in the future they might just go back to using one server. But for now and for this term, we're going to use the Autodesk server. So if you open that, and this is much nicer in that you actually get the Windows interface and you get the file explorer, so you can much easier see where your files are. However, just for ease of finding files, I find it really easy to just create any folder, name it anything on your desktop, save your files there, because that's sort of a easy place to reference back when you're trying to use a save as menu to get back. Also, if you want to kind of find any of the programs, you can just go search. And this is sort of using it on the program here. So from here, if I click here, this will open this. But if I right click and I do open file location, this is on the C drive of the remote drive. And I can do create shortcut here. And it says it won't let me create a shortcut on the sort of the Autodesk server, but it can place one on the desktop instead. And that's how you get these shortcuts, or at least one way to get the shortcuts to Rhino and Revit on your desktop, so they're much easier to click when you're opening Autodesk. And these are within your users sort of folder, therefore they're like specific to you, and what's on your desktop is not like on the server, it's on your users folder. So it's a good idea, I think, to put the Rhino and the Revit shortcut and whatever else you need on the desktop and a folder to find your files. So I'm going to double click to open Rhino. And I'll start with installing a plugin, not Speckle, and then I'll come back to Speckle. So one way, there's sort of multiple ways to install plugins, and some of them are more convenient than others. The most convenient way by far is the package manager. So that would be from Rhino, not from Grasshopper, but from Rhino, from the command line type package manager. And this is sort of connected to the internet, and it can search any plugin. And if the plugin that I'm going to install called MetaHopper is there, which it is, then I can just click there and click install, right? And if I did that, that would install, I would restart Rhino, and that would be good to go. Also, in managing versions, if there's updates, this is sort of a good way that you can see install older versions or uninstall one version and install another version. If it's in Package Manager, that's great. But not all the plugins are in Package Manager, because some of these plugins are sort of a master's thesis or a PhD thesis by certain students, but are also really good, and they just haven't been built all the extra functionality to work. You know, they definitely rarely work on Mac. They don't work with Package Manager. They're just more limited in their functionality. So the second place we might go looking for plugins is Food for Rhino. And Food for Rhino is the official Rhino-owned location for plugins. For that, you need to register an account, and I'm going to use my Gmail because it should work. Oh, that's weird. Actually, that's my password. Yeah, okay. So you need to log in, and then you can download files. So I search MetaHopper from here, and there it is, right? So I go MetaHopper from here, and you can see there's multiple versions that have not been updated since 2019. He did make a Mac version. Example files. This is 2008. This is 2019. So this is the one I want. It says for Rhino 6 for Windows, but it should work with everything afterwards, or 6 plus there. So it's 6 and everything afterwards. So I can download this from here. And it's going to download the GHA file directly. So this is downloading to my computer, I think. Okay. So I'll put it there in my downloads folder. And folder. And now I need to go open Rhino. So I have Rhino open in Citrix. And I need to go file, from Grasshopper. Files, special folders, and components folder. And this will automatically open within your name on your users folder, which is going to be separate for every one of you. App data roaming Grasshopper's libraries. And this is where plugins go. So I can drag from the folder that I have on my other screen, just the file I downloaded, and put that in there. Okay, so it's asking me to upload it to Citrix first. So I'm going to put it on the desktop. And then from here, I can go desktop, and I'll do Control X to cut, and then go back to this folder and press Control V to paste to see if that works. Doesn't look like that. Let me just open another file explorer. Okay, files, folders, components. Okay, so MetaHopper, these are both on Citrix. Okay, there we go. The other thing you need to do, and if it's a zipped file, which often this is a zip file, the best thing is to go properties and unlock. If that's, it's already unlocked, but when you download files from the internet, you usually go properties and to go unlock. Otherwise, the code might be locked, and when Grasshopper tries to use the file, it's locked and it basically won't work. So first thing to do from a zipped file is right-click properties, unlock, then unzip it, then follow the instructions. And often it means moving it here. Sometimes it's moving a whole folder. Sometimes it's moving the file itself. But yeah, it's basically about getting your plugin into this folder. There's also the user objects folder that, which when you install WASP, a lot of things are going to go into the user objects folder. But without sort of going through this way, the usual way to open that is from within Grasshopper and special folders and user objects. So from within Grasshopper, you can open the components folder, which is where the plugins go, or the user objects folder where user objects go. And that's how basically you install a plugin. So MetaHopper won't be here until I restart. So let's see if this works by closing everything and then restarting. So I can see MetaHopper here is at the top, and that's that means it's installed because it's there. One of the things that MetaHopper can do, let's say if I do sphere area, and you don't need to do this, it's just to show you. Okay. So let's try slow this computer down for a second. Okay. So now, if I was to go around the canvas on Grasshopper, I'd be able to see the number of milliseconds that each of these components is taking. And if you don't see any numbers there, the way to turn them on off is this profiler here. So display canvas widgets profiler. I think by default it's on. But when you have like really large scripts, these will go red if they take longer. And a lot of the scripts I've worked on, some of the components might take 1 to 8 to even an hour to calculate. That's one reason I kind of generally lock the canvas if I'm going to make changes, because if something takes an hour to calculate and you move one slider, then it's going to take an hour to give you control back, and that's sort of problematic. But with MetaHopper, one of the useful features is the bottleneck navigator. And in a large script, this is far more useful, but it basically shows us like a ranking of which are the sort of fast and the slow components. And I can kind of zoom to any of them like that. So the sphere is our slowest component here. And while this is not relevant on 28 milliseconds, when you're trying to make a script to work on the internet, or you're trying to make a script somewhere, this is kind of a very useful feature to say, I want to get the load time of the entire script to below 2 seconds. What's slowing me down? And are there any alternative methods that might be faster? So instead of doing area, for example, you might do polygon center. Oh, sorry, that's only going to work on a curve. I guess you do need area here, but you might anyway. There's different things that you might try to see if you can speed up the script. I probably won't make a difference. Oh, actually, did you see that? It's sort of declaring it as an int made it slightly faster, I think, or maybe not. Yeah, so right, 29 milliseconds, and then down to 8, right? So yeah, so I've made this go ever so slightly faster. And that's all that's doing by declaring it as an int means the number is no longer 10.000, it's just 10. And because that's 2 digits, not potentially 8 or 16, because of all those point zeros that came after, it's going ever so slightly faster. Yeah, little speed trick, but not going to make a ton of difference in this example. Anyway, so that's the plugin installed and working. Speckle is installed in a slightly different way. And first, you can go to 2 websites to know. One is Speckle Systems, and the other is app.specklesystems. So from here, you can just download and download for Windows. And you're going to need to get this manager 1 file onto the desktop of, so I've already downloaded it there, right? That's on my computer. So I need to go here and go upload and take from my downloads folder the manager file. Did I have it in there, or did I have it? I'm not sure where it is. I'm just going to download it again, see if it helps. Yeah, okay. So I would just get that up there and we can put it on the desktop just so it's easy to find. So now that's uploading to Citrix. This file is not that big. It's just for some reason. Oh, yeah, it was 60 megabyte. Still not too big. So double click it, next, 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 and you should. I'll just reinstall it. So you see here, it's installing in your users folder. Not actually on the main computer. So in that sense, the install should work fine. And when it installs, you will need to go to accounts and go add account. I've already signed in here, but add account. When it says want to set a customer server URL, you do not. For EIC in Spain, we have our own server. For UNT, we might have a server in the future, but right now there's not a server. So then it pushes you onto to sign in within a web browser to the account you created in Speckle, which if you haven't created an account from when we were in class, you need to create an account. So you can see here that I'm signed in here. Then from connectors, this won't be installed. So you need to go to kind of Grasshopper on this list and just click install, right? Do that install, just next, 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 and then that's done. And then you probably need Rhino closed at the time. And then when you open Rhino, that's it, right? It's ready to go. Speckle might need to load in the background so that it sort of logs you in, and then you can just close it. So then from Rhino, open Rhino for a new time, and open Grasshopper. And now Speckle 2 should be up here, even though it's not where a lot of the components are. They're going to be here. So Speckle 2. This is the basic components. And really you can kind of forget about most of the components and just deal with send and receive. That's all we would need to know. And then create Speckle object. Okay, so send, receive, create Speckle object, and deconstruct. Okay, so now within Speckle, let's go to app.speckle systems in the project. This link is in Miro, which if you haven't already, leave your email here so I can add you to the project on Speckle. Once you're added to the project, then you'll have permission to both receive and to send data. So once, let's say, go in here. So this is where I've invited people, and so far 3 of you have accepted, and I would need to go for if I haven't added your email yet, to add your email up there. So when I come in here, you can kind of go to your name and go copy link, right? I'm just going to use the test one here. So copy link to the test, and back to Grasshopper, and I just basically make a panel and put the link into the panel. And then I can receive. And this is basically just going to download that so I can use it. And you see there, it's one speckle object, so I need to deconstruct the speckle object. And then there is a list of 218 pieces of geometry. Some of them are BREP, some of them are surfaces, and that's basically what I created in class. If I expand this here, there it is. So this is directly coming from the cloud as an ordered list of information. I didn't make much of an effort to control the order that these things were in, but if I did a list item and went through them one by one, this is the exact same order as what I sent them in at the end of class. And then similarly, if I just do geometry here, and I could have done, so geometry is just a general container that will receive meshes, BREPs, curves, surfaces, and not care about the difference. And I can internalize it. And let's say I did one change to it. I'm just going to mesh everything. This is a pretty bad way to mesh everything. It might be a bit slow. 4 seconds. And then I can just join meshes so that it becomes one mesh. More on meshing later. So now I've one mesh. Okay. And now it's the same link that I want to push an update to. So I can just copy this. We're just connected to the same thing twice. I'm not sure why it won't let me select. That is weird. So the link I want to send to, the stream, that's my link. The speckle object, you need to zoom in on it and do plus first. And if this is multiple items, you need to turn on list access. That's sort of common with Python components and other types of components, but just turn list access on if it's a list of information. In this case, I'm just doing one mesh. If I was sending all the geometry as a list, then I would turn on list access. But the goal is to get one speckle object. If I did the full list with no list, I can see I get 218 speckle objects, one for every item on the list. And I would do list access. And then it would takes a little longer, 2.7 seconds. It goes to one speckle object. But I want to do the mesh, and then I don't need a list for that. So one speckle object. So this is the data I want to send. And a message is completely optional, but all you would do is a panel and saying this is a mesh. Oops. Sorry, I need to do it here. This is a mesh. Okay. And then I would just do send. And you can turn it on to sort of auto send. Let's not speak about those circumstances, but like there's not really a point of it now. It's a button. It will only send information when I click the button. So if I make a whole bunch of changes, I change some sliders, let's say I had my actual bridge file open and I made it shorter and I made the bridge more sort of higher vertically, and then I click send again, then it will just push the update. So if I look at what's here now, it's taking slower to load. So I can see that it's finished sending. Okay, there is the mesh. And one of the downsides of like it being one mesh is now it's only selectable as one large object. Anyway, that's that. I can also look at the older versions, so I can see This is the previous version. This is called version control in any kind of software. And the difference here is each of the components are selectable as individual objects. And the benefit here, if I wanted, I could go into the metadata of this, and I could look at the volume, right? And because they're separate components, it's telling me what components are the largest and what are the smallest. So if I do, let's say there, I can see that these have more volume in it than these, and then this one up here, the blue ones are probably the smallest, right? It's not so much useful in this example, but there's a lot of ways that you could filter the data and look through these various things. So like with the X students, we get them to like specify the material choice of all the materials, and they can sort how much glass is in my project and sort of make it as an export as a spreadsheet. Kind of useful features. But that is Speckle. I'm going to now go back into Autodesk, and let's say I want to do all the geometry, make this into a list, and overwrite it, send it back. And once that pushes, we should see a latest model. Yeah, so this, reset the filters. Refresh the page, see if that makes a difference. And it's writing this is a mesh there. Yeah, okay, so the latest is now back to being a list of items, not just one joined mesh. And that's basically enough to introduce you to Speckled. So going back to the project page, it'd be nice to see how many might have the chance. Maybe I understand you're kind of busy for Thursday, but by Tuesday to have this copy link and sort of send your geometry here, and then I can see there. And try like make the bridges slightly different. Like on Miro, I think Cynthia's one was quite nice because it sort of made it shorter, and if you sort of got this more vertical, it's almost like a Ghibli film, if you know the animation studio out of Japan. But try like make it try differentiate your thing to be slightly different. I know the parameters are at this point quite similar, but yeah, try to make a unique view when you do these things, and maybe unique parameters that go away from the project example. And I also added this here that when you put the bookshelf, we can talk about that in class there. All right. And yeah, I'd start definitely get your email here if it's not already here as soon as possible. Thank you. See you in class.